everyone. In this video, we're going to give a thorough analysis of auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder. We hope you enjoy. Auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder, also known as ANSD, is a rare type of sensory neural hearing loss where sound is not transmitted properly from the inner ear to the hearing nerve or from the hearing nerve to the brain, which ultimately results in hearing distortion or hearing loss. ANSD refers to a range of hearing dysfunctions characterized by problems in signal processing along the auditory nerve by the inner hair cells, whereas the outer hair cells would usually be functioning normally. To better understand the effects of this disorder, we will first take a brief look at the anatomy of the human ear and its structure. The ear detects and analyzes sound by the mechanism of auditory transduction. This is the process of converting sound waves into electrochemical impulses to be then interpreted by the brain. The ear has a shell-like structure subdivided into three fundamental parts: the external ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. Auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder is most relevant to the inner ear and auditory nerve. The inner ear has two main components, the bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth. The bony labyrinth consists of series of bony cavities with semicircular canals used to sense sound and overall physical balance in the body. The membranous labyrinth lies within the bony labyrinth and is also a series of semicircular canals containing sensory receptors for hearing. The bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth are parts of the inner ear that contain what is called the cochlea. The cochlea is part of the ear shaped like a snail shell and is the organ of hearing, where the eighth cranial nerve, also known as the vestibulocochlear auditory nerve, starts forming, which is used to transmit signals to the brain. The cochlea contains thousands of tiny hair cells which vibrate in response to sound. The outer hair cells of the cochlea help amplify the sound vibrations coming in, which travel from the middle ear to the inner ear. The inner hair cells convert these vibrations into electrical signals, which are carried to the brain by the auditory nerve. This is how the brain can interpret and give meaning to sounds. Damage to these inner hair cells can result in sensory neural deafness, which is a type of hearing loss that occurs from damage to the inner ear. Going back to our subject of auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder, we see that the outer hair cells appear to function normally. However, there is a disruption in the transmission of sound from inner hair cells to the auditory nerve and brain. Auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder can affect one or more of the following parts of the body's hearing system, which include the following as shown on this slide. The hearing abilities of patients with auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder can vary greatly, anywhere from mild to severe levels of hearing loss. These patients can also experience great difficulty in understanding speech, spoken words, or determining where sound is coming from, particularly in the presence of background noise. Auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder can be diagnosed using three audiometric tests: an auditory brainstem response test, an autoacoustic emission test, and a cochlear microphonic test. The auditory brainstem response test measures whether sound is being sent from the inner ear through the auditory hearing nerve and to the brain, while the autoacoustic emission test and cochlear microphonic test will provide information on how well the outer hair cells of the ear are working. As mentioned, ANSD is a disorder affecting the inner parts of the ear, where the outer hair cells will be functioning normally, and therefore ANSD is characterized by abnormal test results of the auditory brainstem response test, while having normal results of the autoacoustic emission test and cochlear microphonic test. The causes of auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder can be congenital, meaning it can be predetermined from birth, or it can be acquired by causes after birth. An example of a common trigger for ANSD after birth can be jaundice. Jaundice is a condition in which the skin, eyes, and the mucous membrane turn yellow. This yellow color is caused by high levels of bilirubin, a pigment that helps clear out waste when red blood cells are aged or are abnormal. The auditory system is very sensitive to bilirubin-induced neurotoxicity, and therefore these high levels of bilirubin can cause ANSD in infants. One example of a congenital risk factor for ANSD predetermined from birth can include Rh incompatibility, where a mother's Rh in the blood is different from the baby's, or if the mother's blood type is incompatible with the baby's blood type. For example, if the mother is Rh negative and the fetus is Rh positive, the mother's immune system begins to attack the baby, which can cause ANSD for the child. In patients with ANSD predetermined from birth, the disorder can be caused by a range of factors, including anoxia, which occurs when there is a loss of oxygen supply, congenital brain abnormalities developed prior to birth, prematurity, or conditions such as multiple sclerosis or HIV infection. Other risk factors associated with ANSD also include various syndromes, such as the following. Furthermore, approximately 40% of auditory neuropathy cases are thought to have an underlying genetic cause. Previous studies have also shown that hearing loss can be associated with mitochondrial disorders in the cochlea. Mitochondria is associated with creating energy needed for the cells in our body. The cochlea, in particular the stria vascularis, which is a tissue in the lateral wall of the cochlea, is sensitive to energy insufficiency. And so mitochondrial disorders which cause energy insufficiency could then cause ANSD. Auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder makes up about 5 to 24% of children who suffer from permanent sensory neural hearing loss. However, patients can range from newborns to adults. One study looking at infants who developed ANSD found that there was no difference in race, ethnicity, or gender, implying that anyone can develop ANSD. With that being said, socioeconomic variables such as education and income have been shown to impact the improvement in children with sensory neural hearing loss, as some are not able to afford or seek the help that they need. The treatment of ANSD varies depending on the severity of the hearing loss. Here we will present two main therapeutic options for those with ANSD. The first treatment option involves the use of an FM listening device that takes speech sounds through radio signals to maximize and improve the listening noise in settings with a lot of simultaneous background noise. This is recommended for patients with a more mild hearing loss. The second treatment option consists of sound amplification through conventional hearing aids or cochlear implants. Most studies report poor outcomes with the use of conventional hearing aids with ANSD. However, cochlear implants deliver synchronized electrical impulses directly to the auditory nerve, which can provide great improvements in hearing. Some populations with low socioeconomic status impacted by ANSD may not be able to afford the treatment costs for hearing aids and cochlear implants. In Canada and the United States, the average cost of hearing aids can range from $1,000 to $5,000, which is determined by the sound quality and processing features along with the client's severity of hearing loss and lifestyle. The average cost of an FM listening device for those who may choose this treatment option can cost up to several $1,000s, and in the United States, the average cost of cochlear implants can range from $30,000 to $50,000. Here are some of the cochlear implant costs in Canada as of 2022. As you can see, the treatment costs for auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder are very expensive, and unfortunately, many people impacted by this disorder are not able to afford the treatment that they need due to its high costs. Auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder greatly affects the hearing capabilities of those who suffer from it, diminishing the quality of a person's daily life and their communication abilities. Charitable Organization of the Speech and Auditory Disorders will be raising funds and donations for individuals affected by ANSD to help cover costs for those who have trouble affording or seeking treatment. Your help in raising funds will make a real impact towards this cause. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care.